Yep, it's already on. Yeah, come on up front. Get cozy. There's, what, 8 of you? Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Most of you probably already know a fair amount about this. So I'm Jim Perrin. I'm one of the CentOS board members. I've been on the CentOS board for 9 years. I started with the project about 10 years ago. I started as a user with CentOS and kept after them to fix a few things that I kept running into, and eventually they made me fix it myself and put me in the board. So that's pretty much how I started out. The basic challenges for CentOS, actually for this group, let's fast forward. You guys don't care too much about that part of it. All right, here we go. This is the good stuff for you guys. Right now, this is our primary focus. We have a large number of users who come to us as the CentOS project saying, I want to run on this platform, be it OpenStack, Amazon, DigitalOcean, a large number of hosting providers. This is reasonably new because primarily our focus had been institutional-sized deployments. We wanted to focus on schools. We wanted to get CentOS into the hands of students who couldn't necessarily afford a RHEL subscription. We wanted to put CentOS into the hands of people who wanted to build up to something but were starting out with very minimal requirements or very minimal resources. So that is still our target market, but that market has shifted over to Amazon or to DigitalOcean where they can get an image dirt cheap and they don't necessarily need to have a server that meets any sort of hardware specification. They can go pay $5 and get a machine with DigitalOcean for a month. With that, we've had to look at how we target those hosting providers. A number of them on the lower priced spectrum have been doing broken virtualization for a while. They've been implementing their own version of OpenVZ, Virtuoso, things like that. They don't necessarily provide the best support or the most recent kernels or hardware or that sort of thing that's available. And that actually impacts us at a distribution level because if a user goes to run CentOS, they get the impression that what that hoster has provided them is CentOS, and it may not necessarily be. It may have started off life as CentOS, but the hosting provider has changed it or manipulated it or swapped out the kernel or glibc, something along those lines. This is the case with Amazon. This is the case with a large number of cheaper providers. So we have to figure out how to counter that and help those providers provide semi-official instances of CentOS. And that's one of the things that we have been working with. Early on, our target for that was Amazon. We figured we could get the most bang for our buck by trying to get Amazon working with us and having people pull in a proper official CentOS image in the cloud instead of using Amazon's, Amazon Linux, where it started off life as a rebuild, but then they started jamming chunks of Fedora into it, and now it's a mess. So this is pretty much where we are right now. We're in the process of working with Amazon to get new images in there. We are dealing with users who are pushing things into GitHub but not telling us as a distribution about it. They may find a bug. They may fix a bug. We may never hear from them. So we have to go hunting those solutions down. We have to go out and actually find the problem, and our problem becomes that we have to find the problem first. So that's one of the things that we have to focus on. With the acquisition from Red Hat, and I'm preaching to large numbers of the choir here because there's a lot of Red Hatters in the audience, we are not changing the core fundamentals of Red Hat. We are not changing what we do. So if you're using CentOS right now, it's going to continue being CentOS. The core fundamental part of that does not change. Because of the agreement with Red Hat, we also really don't get any preferential treatment or insight into engineering. For us, it's always been the practice that we've been around the Red Hatters long enough, we know the people personally, so we can shoot them an email and say, hey, can you please? And they're under no obligation to listen. They can do the same thing they did before and hang up the phone, delete the email. We can ask as nicely as we want. They don't have to care. What we are working on improving is opening up the build process for CentOS. We want to make it more transparent. On GitHub right now, for specifically targeting 7, we have published all of our mock config scripts. Everything that we are using to build right now is up on GitHub. The way that we do that to some extent is per package, because as we build individual packages, there are some things that we have to swap out. So there is a default generic mock config script for most things, and then custom packages like Apache's HTTPD daemon or things like that where we have to change out pieces on our side. Those have their own individual mock config scripts, and we've got a helper in our builder that will identify if that package has its own config and then go through. But we're making that public. We're also going to open up a community build system similar to what Fedora has with its public Koji instance. So you will be able to build directly against CentOS or directly against a variant of CentOS if you're working on a specific project. We discussed early on if we wanted to just roll that into part of the EPEL project and kind of try and force our way in there, but that doesn't work out so well with what we were looking at. With special interest groups and variants and that level of code change, that made the EPEL folks very uncomfortable, so we decided to stand up a secondary system so that you could, yes? Yes. So what will be the difference between the Koji that are already used for, let's say, EL6 and this build system that you guys are creating? The public build system is very similar. There is not much of a difference at all. The point of that is to open it up to the community for special interest groups. So they may build a newer kernel. They may have an entire tree devoted to building newer things, and we may have to hijack in a few special patches into that build system. For the most part, it is pretty similar. You could do the majority of it on Fedora's instance if you wanted to. There are a couple of edge cases with our special interest groups where that's not possible. So, and one of the people who helped us come to the realization that that's not possible is Mike McLean. He's the maintainer of Koji. So we have it from what I consider to be the best authority out there. If the guy who's writing it tells me it can't do that, I'm going to take his word for it.
So, Fedora offers copper.
Yes.
Fedora offers copper as
yes.
a repository solution.
Mm-hmm.
Would that not be more suitable for special interest groups?
The downside with Copper is right now, we looked at that early on as well. Initially, when this whole discussion came up, Seth Vidal was still part of the discussion behind the scenes. Copper's did not fit at the time because most of its repositories were aimed at being per user and per instance. It was not meant to be a long-term build against type of repository or type of build system, and that's one of the issues that we were struggling with.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
So anyway, what we're moving forward to is adapting CentOS to provide a consistent feel, to provide a consistent user experience, but across a wide array of platforms. So as we're moving into the cloud, that makes more, and I hate the term cloud, but yay cloud. So as we're moving more in that direction, we have to be able to provide a consistent feel across OpenStack, across Docker, across Atomic, or across Overt, since we have Brian in the audience. We want that to be as consistent as possible. The other thing that we want to be able to do is allow people to take the distribution and change it and make it their own. Just like we've done, we want people to be able to do the same thing. If they want to create their own distribution of it, fantastic, please do. We're going to provide the tools to do that in the form of a rebranding tool that will allow somebody to take it, run it against the source code, and then they can spit out Scientific Linux based on CentOS, or some hosting company CentOS or Linux based on CentOS. So we're pushing for the powered by or the based on, depending on if they have code changes or if it's just marketing. This allows for organizations like Dell, who have built their OMSA live tool. Their software update tool is based on CentOS. It runs CentOS. If you look deep enough, you will find it. We didn't have clear enough branding guidelines at the beginning, so they kind of hushed most of that up and covered it up because they weren't really sure, but they came to us and asked us if that would be a problem. And no, please, by all means, use it. We want people using it. This is something creative. Please do this. We even had the guy from Dell who built it come talk at one of our gatherings to talk about how he had done it and why and what they were gaining from doing it on CentOS. So this is the sort of stuff that we want people to be able to do. And here I've gotten ahead of myself. So basically we're looking at powered by CentOS if all they're doing is adding their product on top of. So if somebody wanted to come along and provide a live CD of CentOS with Zimbra built in, and they haven't changed anything underneath, just here it is, here's a mail server, knock yourself out. Fantastic, that's powered by CentOS. If you're a hosting company and you've swapped out the kernel and you're now running OpenVZ with your own kernel, your own glibc, that's great. We want you to do that too. But that's no longer CentOS, that's now your own thing, so based on CentOS instead of powered by. We have, now that we've been working with Amazon for around a year, they've given us a marketplace. We have AMIs up that operate across pretty much every layer that Amazon offers. So you can use it with their storage. You can use it at different levels, so it's no longer just the free tier level like it used to be. You can take an image and grow it up. As of about 3 weeks ago, we now have official CentOS Docker images that are made and produced by us. We're updating them monthly. Excuse me. Before it was just an official package that was done by the Docker folks themselves. They built it on Debian. That's fine. No, it's really not. We had to update that. We did that one ourselves. So we're working with the Docker crew, and we're taking ownership of the CentOS images that they had. So we've got that up. In addition, if we have missed a provider or we haven't been able to target them yet, they may be on our list, but we're just kind of working our way down. We have pre-built images that should apply to most users on cloud.centos.org. So if you're running your own OpenStack instance, or if you're trying to implement your own thing and you want a CentOS image, we've got them with Cloud Init and the other, nice, fun tools built in already. So you can just go to cloud.centos.org, find the image you want, pull it down, throw it in your OpenStack instance, and you're off and running. This is pretty much what we're here to pitch to everybody, is please get involved. We want users who are actively trying to extend CentOS. We want people who have used the distribution and found something that's just not quite doing what they want it to do, and they've enhanced it themselves, or they have built another tool to do something else. Those are the folks that we really need to get involved with the distribution to help change things and to help make things better. So we've got a Brazilian Portuguese translated mailing list. We have some folks who maintain that, and they feed that back to us because I don't speak a word of it. I've been here for a week and I've picked up maybe 10 words. For developers, for high-end folks, if you speak English and you want to talk directly with us, the CentOS Devel list is the place to do that. I'm on that list at least 5 times a day. It consumes most of what I do every day. We have a number of special interest groups, but we are always looking for more. So if you have an idea, if you want to create one, by all means, please do. Even if you don't want to join a group, just tell us what you're doing with the distro. Let us know how you're using it. Let us know if there's something in the distribution that would make it easier for you. Let us know if there's something else that we can do. Right now, we've got approximately 6 or 7 special interest groups that we have already in the works. And I'll just take a few minutes and we can talk about what we've got. Right now, the virtualization group is our primary special interest group. We started this one as the Zen for CentOS project, and we did this prior to our agreement with Red Hat. We had been working with the Zen team to help put Zen support back into CentOS, because when it was removed in the 5 to 6 split, we had a large number of web-hosted users who just had no upgrade path anymore. They were stuck on 5 from that point on. So we had to do something to help them migrate, and we didn't want them to migrate off of CentOS onto something else. So we started working with Lars from the Zen project, and he introduced us to a few of their developers, and they were willing to work with us and get that moving. So right now, they are our first official approved virtualization SIG. We have the code freely available in the Zen for CentOS repository. Now, this is a good example of a special interest group or of a variant because it provides a newer kernel, it provides a newer version of libvirt with some patches built into it, and it puts the Zen tools and Zen functionality back in. So it is not quite core CentOS. There are some pieces that are replaced because it is a newer kernel, because the Zen functionality is there. It is not 100% ABI compliant like most people would expect from normal CentOS. But that's one of the things that when you go to install it, you get the nice shiny warning that says, hey, you're replacing these pieces. That's great. That's the sort of stuff we want to see people doing. So this is one of the things that we've been really happy to have come on board. This is one of our other big ones. The 32-bit functionality in CentOS as of EL7 goes away to some extent. There's no longer a 32-bit distribution. It is 64-bit only, 64-bit for PPC and for x86 64 hardware. And what? For you guys. I don't have one of those to build on. If we get one, we'll build it, but I don't have the hardware. My wife will not let me spend that kind of cash on the power bill required to run that in my living room. So instead, to help out with, there's some game software, there's some older legacy hardware, there are some third-party applications like Microsoft Skype that are specifically 32-bit, and they just will not run on EL7. We've tried since the beta came out, we tried again with the RC. They require some added 32-bit libraries, so that's what we've been working with. with this special interest group. And we're doing this as a special interest group because we're not entirely certain how long we will be able to continue that 32-bit support. We discussed putting it in core, but our core rules don't change. That was, a couple slides back. We're not changing anything for core. So if we cannot continue to do it for the entire life cycle of the distribution, or we're not sure, we're going to force that off into a special interest group. So that's what we've done for 32-bit. Its mock configs are already up on GitHub. We've got a number of people who are working on building that. Right now, there are a few packages that they won't build correctly. There are enough changes or enough missing 32-bit pieces that it doesn't quite build right. But the majority of it is there, and when EL7 goes gold, we should be able to fix it up, and we should have it out the door pretty soon after we have 7 proper. And this right now is the Granddaddy for about 4 people on the CentOS board. This is taking up the majority of our time because this is where a large chunk of our user base is going. So be it the Amazon AMI instances, HP Cloud, Google Compute, whatever you're using, we are headed that way. It may take us a little bit to get there because we're kind of working in order of size, but we're headed that way. And again, here we've got the code and the build scripts for all of our cloud images up in our project repositories for CentOS on GitHub. We have Docker images. We have images for OpenStack, CloudStack, OpenNebula. Just prior to FOSDEM, was it February? Yeah, February. We had a CentOS gathering at an IBM facility in Brussels, and we sat down with some of the developers for a number of these groups and the Cloud Init maintainer, and we had ourselves a little impromptu hack session that came about because of this need. So we were able to get the Cloud Init package bumped for the version that was in Apple. We got that put up to a recent enough version that we could do the things that we needed to do as far as growing volumes once they were established, putting SSH keys in place and doing all of that properly across most of the major cloud providers. So we didn't want to just target one. We were trying to get Cloud Init to work for all of them. And the only one that I believe had an issue with that was CloudStack, and that was resolved about a week later. So we've gotten all of that up and taken care of right now. This SIG came to kind of a grinding halt about 2.5 weeks ago, and I'm wondering if anybody, since most of you are Red Hatters here, can guess why. When Red Hat acquired Ceph, a large portion of the Ceph developers weren't really sure if they could keep talking to us. So when they put out their little media blackout thing internally, all communication just up and stopped. We've had this going for about 3 months now. Actually, I take that back, about 6 months now. We've been working with both the Gluster team and the Ceph team to get storage built in because as the cloud instances move forward and as the OpenStack instances move forward, we want people to be able to have a choice for storage platform, be it Ceph, be it Gluster, whatever, we don't care. We just want it to be able to be easy to use. So as we were working together with both communities, the Gluster folks are happily chugging right along, the Ceph folks are doing the same, and then stop. Full stop. The Ceph guys won't answer our phone calls, they won't answer emails anymore until the day before, at which point they said, just wait a little bit. We didn't know, Red Hat hadn't told us, and then we saw the news like everybody else. Oh, great, okay. Now I can pick up the phone and call them. So we will have, for 7, we will have repositories for both Ceph and Gluster so that they can be used as storage for OpenStack, for Overt, for the different features. As they're rolling in, we will be able to do that. So, and primarily the storage SIG right now is mostly communicating with the other groups, so they come to us, we go to Brian looks at you guys, you kick your ideas for Ceph around, and then it's one big communication circle until it actually works. So that's where we're headed right now. For the other side of it, going back to the more traditional uses from a few years ago, we have the Clark Connect, used to be Clark Connect, that the Clear folks and the NetServer developers are working together to make a simple drop-in, kind of like a small business server instance. You drop a box in, you get your file system storage over Samba for shares. It has spam assassin and claim AV built in for antivirus scanning, things like. It's basically a home office type system. They want it to be point and click. They've got a little web front end store to install software. They're working with us to create this and put it out there. Their idea is basically to make a turnkey appliance that they can just plunk down in someone's office. They can have a Windows admin click a few buttons, and they've got a mail server for themselves, and they've got a file server for themselves. It looks really good. They've got a decent product so far. But Clear and Neth compete. So this is an interesting upstream example for us where we've got two competitors who have a marketplace that they are actively selling, but they're coming together to work with us to provide a common foundation for everything else. So this is actually working out really well so far. This proposal was officially submitted, I believe, 2 days ago, so it was while I was here, and it will be up for vote for the next board coming up very soon, the next board meeting coming up very soon. These are the things that we would like to have, but we're not, right now we do not have the people required. For our special interest groups, one of the things that we require is an outside party to take ownership of it. One of the problems with CentOS has always been that the board has been, since inception, about 9 guys. We've gone down to as low as 5, but it's always primarily been 9 individuals building everything. That's not a whole lot. We're a distribution by admins. So if there is a project here, we want it to happen, but we need a developer. We need somebody else to take responsibility for it because 9 guys get spread a little thin after a while. So with the GNOME 3 hesitancy, if hesitancy is a strong enough word for what we've been hearing, there's a lot of love for GNOME 3 and Systemd. People seem to have a very strong opinion one way or another about them. The EPEL maintainers have already put Mate and Cinnamon into their repository so that we can easily consume that and put it into an installer if there is a demand for it. So that SIG is mostly established. It's just waiting for maintainers. We have 1 right now. We want to have 2 more helping so that it's not just all relying on one person. ARM support is another thing that we are looking at very heavily. Our thing right now is we would like to see ARM64 hardware first. 32-bit has been enough of a challenge already, so doing 32-bit on ARM is going to be problematic. Beyond that, the biggest thing that we need are ideas from the community. If there's something else, and we've gotten one of those when we came here the other day. One of the first people came up to talk to us, and they had who's it? The Sci-Fi, something. Sci-Fi. The networking folks who were here. They set up the networking for the conference. They were interested. We had no idea. We want them. That's a very good thing. So that's the sort of stuff, is essentially we need your ideas.
When you say you guys are the developers, not the kind of developers, I mean, people that have these views or people that are working with some project, related project, or even both?
Both. to be perfectly honest, as long as somebody is willing to be responsible for it, and they either have the skill set themselves or the power to go get somebody with the skill set to do the work, I don't care. Somebody just needs to stand up and say, yes, I will be responsible for this, and we need the ability to go to that person and make things happen. If that works, fantastic. Any other questions?
One of the things that is interesting to me about these things, because as I hear you describing all these things and branching out into the downstream, do you feel like any of this is going to eventually find its way back up to Red Hat? I mean, I understand the neutrality of the relationship between CentOS and Red Hat, but by the same token, your downstream project, you're doing all these interesting things. Do you envision these, work product and whatnot coming out of these things and eventually finding their way back up the stream?
Yes and no.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand that relationship and how that works.
For me, I try to think of it instead of upstream and downstream. I try to think of it as gears, where one gear turns the next, and there's essentially a parity there. That's not really accurate, but it helps me envision the right thing. This model is not an official way to put things into upstream. However, every time we talk about this with newer development, the managers within Red Hat are keeping an eye on what we're doing. So if they see something taking off, they will probably make note of it, and that code may find its way in. But we are not the official way for doing that. Fedora stays upstream, so anything that happens for us would need to be pulled out and then cycled in through the proper channels. But Red Hat very definitely is paying attention to what we're doing. They're reasonably savvy that way. If they see something that's taking off and it makes good business sense, they're going to pay attention. Anything else? Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.